So welcome to this latest global podcast. It's my absolute pleasure again to welcome colleagues from around the Cresa network to talk about some of the issues, some of the things that we're seeing as a direct consequence and reaction to COVID. And over the last few months, as we've done these, I think there have been changing themes. And the thing I'm keen to touch on today is where colleagues see their particular areas and regions in terms of that movement away from absolute lockdown and COVID terror to potentially kind of opening up and getting back to something that's starting to look like normal. And everyone will have their own view of that and anecdotes, I'm sure. But maybe if we start at the beginning and start with you, Dick. Obviously, the journey for you guys has been a little bit longer for various reasons. So it'd be interesting to find out where you are at the moment from a sort of China perspective. Sure.
Thanks, Chris, and everyone. So China is back to full normality, and according to China state figures, 98.7% of large companies resumed all operations. Everyone is back to work as normal. And I would say from an Asian perspective, the HR issues that may come up in the US and or Europe are not as important here. Simply the golden rule from a local company, a civil servant and or a Chinese SOE company is get back to work, we're full steam ahead and everyone should be busy. The mix on that is global multinational companies in places like Hong Kong and Shanghai have given all staff a choice, but in general, we're seeing that the staff will all want to come back to the office and come back into the office because that is how the Asian countries are working that way. A big take-up of office space in the Hong Kong office market most recently has been the Hong Kong government, and that's an interesting one. So it's leading the way in taking up office space and has done a few major transactions. So it's putting its best foot forward in leasing long-term office space and telling everyone in the market that everyone's going back to work. Let's go ahead and do it. We don't have a push-pull fight in local companies, and we don't as yet have HR or legal ramifications simply because the government's saying we're all back at work and we are COVID negative at the moment with small outbursts, but in general, it's full steam ahead and all good.
Okay, interesting. And Alan, I guess the world tends to often, the Western world certainly tends to look at the US for behavior, particularly when it comes to HR and people-related matters. And I know that in London, for example, we've been waiting for a number of the big US corporates to sort of declare before some of the local firms of scale are prepared to ask or even tell staff to do certain things in relation to return to work. How are you seeing things with clients in the US at the moment?
Yeah, so I think it's still being very measured. I don't see as much mandates as I do, maintaining that thought of optionality and trying to figure it out as companies come back online. But the trends are from all areas, from metro ridership to occupancy levels downtown are trending up. So people feel that after the summer, and we're not hearing anyone declaring anything past 2021. So we feel, I think that again, HR departments are going to have to work through this still as people come back, but mandates on vaccinations, it's still that optionality.
Okay. And Piotr, from a Poland point of view?
Well, Central Eastern Europe perspective, that probably would be a better description. Back to business, industrial is booming, development going on. We're managing cost of construction. I think it's going down a bit, but that was the biggest challenge. But overall, industrial logistics booming. We are back to business. Office, almost back to normality. The companies are under pressure from their employees, which were stuck at home for a year, and they want to go back and do their networking business as usual. So there is a upwards pressure to go back to the offices, and the business is returning to offices. The financial institutions are a bit cautious where they are, but I think going and listening what is happening with JP, GS, and other American banks, and the city and other banks, I think we will be after awaited holiday in September back to offices. Demand for office is growing. Maybe not the demand, but the a willingness to find a solution. What do we do with the existing space? What do we need more space? Do we need consolidation, and so on? So we see picking up in the business, which was pretty normal. We had to wait and see what's going on. Traveling is open, restaurants are open, shopping centers are open, people are flying back and forth. So I think with the vaccination levels and understanding what is being required, we're slowly getting back to normal. And I think by end of the year, we will be almost back to normal.
Okay, interesting, positive. And Charles, that thread of positivity finds its way inevitably to you. Do you continue it?
No, it does. It does. We are positive. I would use the word maybe caution in our part of the world, with kind of a two milestones early July, so pretty much since the end of last week, regarding return to the office. We are noting that major companies are asking their staff to come back as much as they can. Voluntarism is still a major word in this milestone, so they're not imposing anything, but asking for volunteers to come back to work at this stage. The 2 days of working from home is now almost a trend and will stay as the trend. And as my colleagues were saying, we're seeing the restaurants getting full again. We're seeing people coming back in their car. There's a big mobility switch. We're seeing less and less people in the public transportation, and more by caution using cars, bikes, and bicycles. And they're also still the trend that we're seeing. So that's the first date of July. And then September, voluntarism is supposed to be replaced by obligation. So the staff will have to go back to work for most corporates and keep the 2 days of working from home. So caution is a bit the word here. Progressivity between now and September, where the norm will be coming back to the office.
Interesting. When I look at London, so London has a big milestone upcoming with the mid-end of this month, when we essentially exit all COVID restrictions. And the degree to which we exit them, we're about to find out. But in theory, it's a full exit, so we can carry on kind of as normal. Anecdotally, clients who were looking at reducing footprint and enforcing, or not enforcing, but allowing more work from home, have actually found pushback from their staff that they want to be able to come into the office. I think there's still that whole balancing act of just how much time they want to be in the office versus being at home. But the moment they find out it's actually not possible to all be in the office, there's almost this kind of, well, I don't really like that idea very much. I don't want to be stuck at home. It's if I want to be at home that I'll be at home. So there's interesting balancing act going on at the moment. And the other thing that we are seeing that perhaps isn't a surprise, those talks of reductions in space of 40, 50% that were being talked about, even as recently as 6 months ago, are now probably in the 10 to 30%. And the 30% is actually those people who didn't have any form of flexible working in place before the pandemic. So it actually isn't a dramatic thing that they've gone to 30%. It's probably pretty natural and what most businesses had already kind of evolved to. But I think, as many of you have said, there is this challenge around the kind of people and whether it's you've got no choice because that's just the way we operate and you'll be told to come back, or there is this opportunity to work collectively as a group to come back in. I mean, from a US point of view, Alan, The only business that we hear talked about in the UK as being one that is mandating that people need to go back is Apple and Tim Cook. That's the one that's continually kind of held up as being, you know, the poster child for the office. Is everything else just a lot subtler and a lot gentler in terms of the messaging?
Yeah, we did a study with a number of CEOs, and for every employer, I think that's being told, if you make me come back to the office, I'm going to make another decision career-wise. We're hearing of a company who, because they had dynamic office space and workplace, and they were open, they were being the choice for talent that wanted that kind of together, people being together and in an office setting and providing those kind of features. So I really think it's a very, like I say, measured. Most companies are taking a measured approach to it and not doing the mandates.
Okay. And is anyone sort of seeing or witnessing any examples of great workplace planning from the point of view of how you schedule your staff coming into space? Because one of the big challenges is actually, how do you fit a square peg in a round hole? And there's a capacity for that to be the outcome of this process.
You mean from our employees and our business, or our clients?
Or from a design, Chris?
Yeah, and how this new way of working and actually the same collective pool of people fit into something a lot smaller.
I guess in all parts of the world, this is still a huge question mark. I mean, the companies are all trying to understand what the consequences of all of this will be. Most of our clients are asking us to help them better plan for their workplace, better understand what type of options they have, better understand their building and their space, because in fact, they don't know it that well. So they want to be ready when they see clearer what they could do with their assets. And that's something we're seeing very much. All of a sudden, it makes sense to better understand what the different options will be, what type of flex ratio we should use. Is it 0.5? Is it 0.6? Is it up to 0.8? And what consequences that could have on our real estate. So for us, it's more of a question mark today. They're getting ready to make decisions in the future, which could be near, but not many have made those decisions so far here.
I would echo Charles. That I think we've had some experiences, our project management group, with clients who probably would say they went a bit too far this past year, too quickly, making decisions on space and the modifications to workstations to, now I think they probably would say that spend wasn't maybe appropriate or too fast. So I do think companies are waiting a bit to see how they come back to the office before making those design decisions. Again, if you're at an inflection point, you have a lease coming up, you're going to be more engaged in it, but I think it's still, if companies can, they want to see how this all flows.
Dick, from a Hong Kong, China point of view, ways of working change very much out of interest?
I think the flex space was probably resisted here over the last 5 years, apart from the global multinationals. So the Hong Kong operator or business community and the China one has now had to embrace that. So it's probably fast forwarded that with the workspace in Hong Kong and China. That's the difference you are seeing, where the old-fashioned companies now have to change to keep staff happy and or COVID regulations going forward. That's the big change we've seen. But nothing too innovative from what I've seen with even the tech companies. A lot of them would be copying the faster growth companies like Trade Desk, Apple, these guys who are sort of ahead of the game with space usage and stuff like that. Okay.
All right. Well, look, I think I want to just finish on predictions. Only one prediction, because we're at this, I think we're at a pivot point based on where we've been the last 15 months anyway. For each of you, when we next do this in a month or two's time, what's your prediction about what we'll be talking about and where we'll be Alan?
Yeah, I think companies are going to continue to be really engaged, which we all, love, right? I think that workplace and people planning is now as much as space planning, and so I think that's just the new reality, and I think that's really positive. Again, that's what we want: engaged clients, thoughtful about their people in place.
Charles?
Same. Since my position today is the caution position, I would add nevertheless some HR consequences that are starting to be understood by managers. Tough to get people to come back to work when these people have decided to live far from from the office. And in France or in this part of the world, many have decided to kind of change their life and leave the center cities to go back to the countryside. So it's not easy to pop up for a meeting the following day. So managers are discovering something new, which is what you're not going to be physically present, but that's not possible. You need to come. So that's the first consequence. The second consequence is this economist in France said that France is living a burnout, all of the country. And it's true that many employees have suffered through this process. It's been 16 months. For many, they've disappeared from their companies, and managers are now understanding that some of their staff are ill or not really ready to pick up the same rhythm as the one they had before. So there's a lot of work to be done to get these people back on track and hopefully get them back engaged with their company. So business positive, people want to go back to work, but some cases that will need to be HR driven very carefully by managers in the coming weeks.
Sure. Piotr?
Positive, upbeat. What we'll be discussing 3 months from now, probably labor shortage, lack of skilled people or enough skilled people, cost of inflation or leveling inflation or financing costs. I think this is what we will be looking from that perspective. Otherwise, if we will not have the fourth, fifth wave, and I don't think we will, all very positive.
Excellent. Dick?
I think we'll talk about absorption rates increasing, landlords talking to increase rentals a little bit, even though the market won't accept it. Hopefully we'll talk about holidays and maybe even England winning the Euros. That could come.
Well, it won't be France, will it, Charles?
No, it won't. That's for sure. We prefer the world to Europe. We're that kind of people. We prefer the world.
I thought that was us.
That was you. That was you 50 years ago, but it was us. It was us only 3 years ago. So that's what
okay. I think we're moving into predictions that aren't relevant for this this podcast. So, thank you, guys.
Forza Italia.
Yeah. Thank you, guys, and thank you for tuning into this latest podcast. And if we can help with any real estate issue, please do reach out to any one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks all.